You're watching Battle of Champions with me, Nikhil Naz. Unfortunately, India's campaign at the T20 World Cup is over. That after New Zealand beat Afghanistan in a one-sided encounter, a victory by 8 wickets. Anyway, the Indian fans were hoping against hope, hoping for Afghanistan to pull one against a more experienced, a team with more pedigree in New Zealand. But that wasn't the case because the Kane Williamson-led side showed a lot of professionalism. They came to the party and did all things right that they needed to do against a tricky opponent in Afghanistan. We'll have Sunil Gavaskar joining us live on the show, and then we'll talk about this particular game as well as India's disappointing campaign in the tournament so far. But first, here are the highlights from that New Zealand-Afghanistan game.
Afghanistan began with expectations of over $1 billion riding on them, but it took Kiwis just 14 deliveries to strike the first dent on those hopes.
A great catch. It was almost a slow.
1 became 2 and 2 became 3. Even before the power play had ended, Afghanistan were 23 for 3 after 6 overs. Gulbadin Naib and Najibullah Zadran got a bit of partnership going before the former dragged one from Sodhi onto his stumps at the halfway mark.
That man again is Sodhi.
Najibullah, however, was the one who was causing most of the damage, and he had his skipper Mohammad Nabi at the other end.
Flashing blade, and there's...
The left-hander soon got to his half-century, one that came of 33 deliveries and the one his team desperately needed.
Half-century in T20 internationals. And
Najibullah was playing like a lone warrior and proved to be a thorn in the flesh for the Kiwis as Afghanistan went past the 100-run mark.
Goes after him big, this time mid-wicket. Oh my!
He was finally dismissed for a 48-ball 73, but his innings had allowed Afghanistan to post 124 for 8.
Quite brilliant, Jimmy Neesham.
New Zealand needed a good start and they began well before Mujibur Rahman got Afghanistan their first breakthrough.
Claiming it, and yes, they'll take.
The Kiwis went past the 50-run mark before Rashid Khan got Martin Guptill, and both the openers were back in the dressing room with the scoreboard reading 57 for 2.
From Martin Guptill, and it's...
If Afghanistan thought they had a chance, Kiwis had their skipper Kane Williamson at the crease along with Devon Conway. The two denied Afghanistan any opening or opportunity, and New Zealand sailed past the Afghanistan score, which proved to be a little too less for the Kiwis. With that victory, New Zealand also shut the door on India for a place in the semi-final and instead joined Pakistan in the last 4 stage from Group 2. Sports Bureau, India Today.
Now, what that result has done is given us the 4 semi-finalists at this particular edition of the T20 World Cup. We know now who the 4 semi-finalists are. They are Pakistan, Australia, England, and now you've got the New Zealand team joining them. What has that done to the group table that India was part of? India now in the 3rd spot ahead of Afghanistan. That is in terms of run rate. But remember, India still have a game to go against Namibia. But even if they were to win that, they'd still only reach 6 points. And then you have Pakistan, New Zealand with 8 points. We don't know who's going to top the group because that would be dependent on the Pakistan versus Scotland game. Assuming Pakistan win, then they'll be table toppers here and then will face Australia in the semi-final. Sunil Gavaskar joins us live now to look back at this particular encounter. We'll also talk about the Indian team with him. But Sunil, let's start with this Afghanistan-New Zealand game. As good as the Afghanistan bowling attack was, you knew 124 was never going to be enough.
That is true. If Afghanistan had got to maybe 140, 150, where they were going to ask the opposition to get more than 7 runs and over, then there would have been some semblance of pressure. And even after that, if they'd got a couple of early wickets, then again, there could have been some pressure. But they didn't get the wickets. New Zealand played very smart cricket. They didn't take undue risks. They were very clinical, very, very professional with the way they knocked the runs. They were not looking for the power shots. They were looking more for placements, even when they played the lofted shots. So top class win this for New Zealand.
As you said, if Afghanistan were in with a chance, they needed to take some early wickets. Were you surprised then that their ace bowler in Rashid Khan doesn't bowl in the power play?
Well, not really, because I think he prefers to bowl in the after the power play is done, because he likes more fielders in the deep. But yes, I think maybe an over could have been tried where maybe the fifth over or maybe even the sixth over of the power play, the last over of the power play could have been tried because at that particular point, if they had taken that early wicket, then they could have put some pressure.
Okay, let's talk about the star of the show with the bat. That was once again Kane Williamson. Now, this is a batsman, Sunny, when we were talking about him, didn't come into this tournament in great form, wasn't even showing great form in the games previous to this one. But then when it really counts, you expect a player like him to play a captain's knock. And that's exactly what Williamson did today.
For sure, because, that's a quality of this particular batsman, because look at the way he shepherded the innings. 2 wickets were down, and then when Devon Conway came into bat, he also himself, Williamson, hadn't got too many deliveries under his belt or runs under his belt. But the way he partnered Devon Conway and ensured that there were no further mishaps, that is the true indication of what a quality player this New Zealand batsman is.
So I'm wondering, because this is the same Kane Williamson who captains Mujib, Rashid Khan, Nabi in the IPL, must have played plenty of their deliveries in the net, so probably made it easier for him to handle them in this crucial stage?
Definitely, yes, no question about it. I think when you play these guys in the nets, you have a fair idea. Though you've got to also admit that none of the bowlers are going to bowl their magic deliveries to him. In the nets, they will be looking to bowl basically the normal stuff, just to get their rhythm right, to make sure that their run-up is right, to make sure that they're not overstepping. These are the things that they would do at the nets. They won't give him. I'm pretty certain that Mujib would not pull the back of the hand delivery to him, or even the one that he flicks the carom ball. He wouldn't do that in the nets to him. And neither would Rashid bowl the googly to him. So clearly, yes, while the net practice is good, you just get a feel. When you play these guys in the nets, what happens with a batsman is there's a sense of familiarity, and that helps you when you're batting.
All right, there were a few very important moments. If they went either ways, probably the game could have turned on its head. And I'm going to quote one moment, Sunny, there. That was Devon Conway. Was batting on 3 or 4, nicks the ball, is caught by the wicket keeper. The team doesn't even appeal. You never know, had he gotten out then, because he, 36 not out. At the end, you could have set the cat amongst the pigeon.
Well, it's very strange, isn't it? When modern day cricket, you see everybody going in for an appeal, even though they actually know that the batsman is not out. And here you have a situation where the batsman is out and nobody is appealed. That's strange, but that's how the luck goes as well. So yes, if he had been taken at that stage, who knows? There could have been pressure. But again, that's the beauty of this game. Lots of ifs and buts.
Okay, I'll try and get back to this game. A few more things to talk to you about. But for the moment, I'm diverting a bit and speaking about the Indian team, because it was also an important day for the Indian team. They are now knocked out of the T20 World Cup. Even if you are the most optimists of Indian fans, would it be fair to say, Sunny, that on the back of the performance that we've seen from the Indian team, those 2 crucial losses, somewhere they didn't probably deserve to go through to the semi-finals?
Well, I mean, if you look at the group, those were the 2 toughest matches for them. Yeah. Afghanistan would have been also a little bit tough because of the quality players that they have in their team. But Namibia and Scotland were going to be pretty much easy, as we saw in the game against Scotland. So really, those 2 matches against Pakistan and New Zealand were the ones which were the toughest. And I will not take anything away from what Pakistan and New Zealand did, because they were superb on that day. On that day, they could have beaten most teams in the world, and India just found them when they were at their best, when both Pakistan and New Zealand were at their best.
Okay, so today the bowling coach of the Indian team, Bharat Arun, came for the press conference, and he was asked various questions about India's performance. I'm going to get reactions from you on 2 of his quotes. The first one, and I'm quoting him here, he says that they've been in a bubble for 6 months. He's talking about the Indian team, and that takes a huge toll. Maybe a short break between the IPL and the T20 World Cup would have helped, unquote. This is what he said. Would you agree with him that it was just, one tournament after the other, and the intensity and the kind of time spent in the bubble could have taken a toll on the Indian players?
It could have, because look, none of us know exactly what the hardships are in a bubble, particularly for a team. For us, who are also in a bubble, the pressure is not there. The pressure to perform is not there. For the players, the pressure to perform is there while they're in a bubble. So while they may be able to mingle amongst themselves, mingle amongst with their family and the families of other teammates, the pressure can tell on you. Having said that, maybe at that stage, when we talk about workload factor, to take it easy, etc., could some of the Indian players have not played the last few matches of the IPL? Could they have avoided playing that and therefore kept themselves fresh for India? Well, that is something that they themselves will be able to answer. Particularly when you know that you may not be able to qualify for the semis and the finals of the IPL. Should some of the players have taken a break and given themselves that 1 week, 10 days to freshen up, to recharge their batteries.
All right, very interesting point there by Sunil Gavaskar, as he says that yes, bubble fatigue may be true, and especially for players that face a lot of pressure. But on the other hand, if a player doesn't want to play a particular game, and especially if those games are inconsequential, then it's the player's prerogative to decide whether he wants to be part of the playing 11. And if you really needed some time off, I doubt there'd be any IPL team that wouldn't allow you, keeping in mind that you have such an important tournament like the T20 World Cup to follow. So the other thing that Bharat Arun spoke about, he says that, listen, toss plays a very crucial role here. To an extent, what he's saying is right. I mean, you got to agree that we've seen toss play a lot of role in terms of deciding who ends up on the winning side. But would you put that down as the major reason for India not having made the semi-finals?
No, the major reason really has been the splendid bowling from Pakistan and from New Zealand, which didn't allow our batting to flourish. If our batting had flourished like it did against Afghanistan when they scored 200, then the dew factor doesn't come into play at all, because the bowlers have a cushion of 30-40 runs already. And so a wet ball, even if they were taken for a few runs, those 40 extra runs or 50 extra runs would make the difference. What happened against Pakistan, what happened against New Zealand is their bowlers bowled brilliantly, and they didn't allow our accomplished batsmen to get going. And that is the reason why India just didn't have enough runs for their bowlers to defend with a wet ball.
Okay, so just looking back at this entire tournament, we know that Virat Kohli has already announced that this is going to be his last assignment as skipper as far as the T20 format is concerned. We don't know whether he will continue as the white ball captain in ODI. That is up to the selectors to decide. There have been now, 4 ICC tournaments under him, and India have failed to win a title. How are you going to look back at Virat Kohli and the campaign that he's had as the white ball captain of the Indian cricket team?
Well, I mean, when you look at the bilateral series, whether it's at home or overseas, India has won most of those bilateral series. But yes, I think in the world events, multi-country events, India haven't done well. So you've got to balance that out and look at it. If you just go by sheer statistics, number of wins, he's got under him, India has won more matches than under any captain that I can think of. Maybe my stats are wrong. And so that has to be taken into account as well. World events are a different matter, because unlike in the bilateral series where you've got X number of matches, say 5 matches, so that if after the first match there is a second match, there's a third match. What happens in a world event is that every match is almost like a knockout match, even if it's in the group stage, even if it's in the league stage. And then therefore the pressure for those matches is that much more than in a bilateral series matches.
Saibhai, would it be fair to say, and it's not just Virat Kohli, in general, if you're a cricket fan or an analyst of the game, that bilateral white ball series may not carry as much weightage as a world event? So if you were to look back at a legacy of a captain, even if you were to win one ICC trophy, that would probably trump multiple bilateral white ball series. I understand that bilateral test series have a lot of importance, but bilateral white ball series versus an ICC event, would that be a regret that Virat would have?
Are you asking me?
Yes, anyway. Sunil, can you hear me? All right, I think we may have lost the audio with Sunil Gavaskar there, but he was just describing to us how India has performed. Sunil, can you hear me now?
I didn't know that you asked me that question, because how would I know what Kohli is thinking, whether he's regretting it or not. I mean, you could ask him that question, not me.
No, I understand. But I'm saying as a captain, any captain, if you were to give him, let's say, an ICC trophy, and on the other hand, give him multiple bilateral white ball series, if you were captain, what is it that you'd rather have?
Oh, definitely a world event championship, no question. A multi-country event championship is something that you would cherish, perhaps a little bit more than bilateral events. Again, depends which bilateral event you're talking about. If it is against a really top-class country, if you win, say, a bilateral series against Australia, then that also is as good and as big as maybe winning the World Cup, or against a bilateral series in T20 cricket against, say, England, who are so good at it, or even the West Indies, who have been two times champions. Then you would cherish that for sure, no question about it. But yes, a World Cup win, a world event win, that is, absolutely the right at the top.
All right, so my final comments from you, and I want to get back to that game, because one very important element that we missed out in that Afghanistan versus New Zealand game was the outstanding fielding by the Kiwi fielders. You reckon, this is one of the reasons that New Zealand ends up, always punching above their weight? Today we saw an outstanding save there, which saved 6 runs. Then that catch to get, Zadran, who was the man in form, he could have gone on to get even 20, 15 more runs. That is what really sets New Zealand apart.
In T20 cricket, that is and limited overs cricket, that is always going to be the deciding factor when two well-matched teams play against each other. Whichever team fields well, takes it catches, stops the boundaries, is where they will save those extra runs. They will give those extra runs to their bowlers, and they will save those extra runs if they're chasing, save them from scoring those extra runs. And New Zealand has always been an outstanding fielding unit, and that's why they give an added edge to their bowling attack. Some of their bowlers might not look very threatening, but it's the fielding where they have a lot of dot balls because of the fielding that adds the pressure on the opposition batsman.
All right, Saima, thanks so much for your time. Always a pleasure talking to him. Also, remember, the New Zealand team were playing their 3rd game in 5 days, and all of them were day game. We heard Martin Guptill the other day say that he lost 4 kilos playing that one encounter. Imagine playing 3 day games and yet having that sort of intensity. So you can't really grudge New Zealand making the semi-finals. They've just been outstanding in this tournament, barring that one loss that came against Pakistan. That's all that we could pack into the show this evening. Thanks so much for watching.